Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dave.
Hello, how are you?
I can't say anything because
Okay.
you'll tell me I'm lying.
Oh, you're going to say fine?
Yeah.
Mhm. You're lying. Go ahead.
Welcome back. It is Dave and I today, and we have some new things that we're going to be unpacking with you. I'm really excited to do that. Thanks again for continuing to share with us what these talks have meant to you. Really fun to interact with you and hear from you. So keep doing that. I feel like I say that every time, but it really is true. We're enjoying our time talking with each of you that reach out.
Yeah, it really helps us even know where to go, what's connecting, what isn't. I wish you could even find a way to interact more live with live questions. Maybe we can figure that out in another universe.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
When I said we figure that out, I meant you.
I know. I'm already envisioning what I'm going to be
Yeah,
doing
okay.
after this.
Okay.
But again, so we have been talking about things that don't move, things that remain when our scaffolding of our life disappears, the things that we thought we were sure about and we're no longer sure about. So moving through that as a discussion point, and that led us to also including Kent Carlson on some episodes. If you haven't listened to those are a few episodes back, and go ahead and give a listen. We talked a lot about, over the course of a couple of times, this model that we call the incarnational model. And again, it'd be really helpful if you went and listened to those. It kind of sets up where we're headed next, which we're going to go back to some old talks that Dave did. Was it early 2000s that you did these?
Oh,
Oh
man.
man, I can't remember. But this Way of the Rabbi series, and
Yeah.
why we are heading
2013.
there, is it's a great place to start when we're thinking about who are we going to show up to be in the world. If God is calling us to follow him and not just be believers, but be followers, and I hope Dave is going to unpack that a little more about what that actually means, that Jesus taught us a way to live, a way to follow him. There's actual things that we can do to do that. So Dave, I hope I set you up okay there.
Yeah.
Why don't you jump in?
Yeah, one of the things we were talking about was when you get into that incarnational model, and what that is about Christ in you, living it out there. Well, there has to be some authentic life of God in you to have anything to give. And, but ultimately it comes back to even what our understanding of the gospel is. And one of the things that I grew up in was the big question when I was going to church as a little kid was, are you saved? And we were always getting people saved. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get people saved, but that was the big deal. And it was primarily from hell. One of my favorite stories about that was I was 10 years old, around 10 years old, ADD, didn't know I was ADD. I was just squirrely and couldn't sit still, and kind of made a little bit of noise, I'm sure, in church this Sunday. And after church, we all stood up for to be dismissed. And this lady was sitting in front of us, turned around. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you what I saw. She had the face of the Wicked Witch of the West and a voice to match saying, and she said to me, I'm 10 years old, are you saved? Like that. And in that moment, I wanted to be, from her, especially from her. And I'm not saying that's not an important question, but that question relative to church as a pastor, wanting even our people to understand the breadth of the gospel. The question that is compelling is not just are you saved, but are you alive? And I'm not making that up. And that's the metaphor that Paul uses in Ephesians 2 and Colossians 2, because we were not just sinners who needed forgiveness. We were sinners who needed forgiveness. We needed to be saved from our sin. We were dead in our transgressions, is what Paul said. So the remedy needed to be bigger than forgiveness, so you go to heaven when you die. The remedy was you needed to be resurrected. You needed to come to life. So the question that I find compelling is, are you alive? Okay. Mm-hmm. And that brings us in a whole huge direction. The whole, what do we call it? Not the vision, the mission of Open Doors churches to enter into the struggle of becoming fully what? Alive. Mm-hmm. And you become more and more alive. Well, the other thing that goes back and forth like that is this. So there's saved and there's alive. And there's also believe in Jesus and or follow Jesus. And the only person who would follow Jesus is someone who believes in Jesus. So they're not mutually exclusive. But I just over the years, it became important to me to articulate this in ways that people could understand and enter into, and even kind of where am I in this whole thing? Because I just think there's people in a lot of churches all over the place who would admire Jesus, who would worship Jesus, who might say they love Jesus in some way, have no intention. I don't even know what it means to follow Jesus, like follow his way of living and loving. And so that whole thing of following, not just believing, I'm not saying doesn't matter, but following is this big thing. When Jesus in Matthew 4 saw Simon and who was Peter and Andrew, his brother, on the shore, he said, come follow me. Now, I'm going to make fun of something that I'm not making fun of, and I don't want to get in trouble, but it is a little disturbing when Jesus never said, accept me. Jesus, like at recess, would you accept me as your personal savior? Anyway, sorry, I went too far. He never said, will you accept me? He didn't say, will you believe in me? He never told people to do that. He said, I want you to follow me, my way, not just my precepts, my way of living and loving and all of that kind of stuff, but all of that, because the Aramaic word or the Hebrew, it was lechacharai, lechacharai, come follow me. And that's what ties into, and that's why we wanted to talk about the Way of the Rabbi here a little bit, because I just think it's fascinating and it's worth revisiting now in light of the incarnational thing we were talking about. We know Jesus as many things, and he is Savior, he is Lord, he is Son of God. He is, according to Hebrews, the radiance of God's glory, the exact representation of his nature. But 2,000 years ago, there were a whole bunch of people who called him rabbi. 14 times in the Gospels alone, he's addressed as rabbi. He's called rabbi 40 times. He is called teacher or master. And there were ways that you would become a rabbi. That distinction was very distinct. And there was an educational system they had that was designed actually there. When kids went to school then in Galilee or in Israel, they weren't learning science and math. They were learning Torah. And the reason they were learning Torah it wasn't just the Sunday, high-powered Sunday school thing. They needed to learn Torah because that was how they kept their identity alive. Nobody had a Bible at home. They had one scroll in most villages in the synagogue or in the synagogue. And so from the age of 6, they would start the educational system with this thing called Bet Sefer, the house of the book. At 6 years old till 10, little kids, Jesus went to Bet Sefer, where they would stuff them with the Torah like an ox, is what they said. They would literally, by 10 years old, have memorized Torah. And Torah was, among other things, it was the book. It was the book of life. It was their story. And I mean, people this was really serious to them because we miss one generation and we are done as a people. We will lose our identity. So that's why they're memorizing all this stuff so they can know the story and then carry it on. At 10 years old, a lot of kids just were done. That was done. But some kids kept going, but you had to be pretty good to keep going. It was called Bet Talmud, and that was called the House of Learning. And this is where, beyond memorization, because they would end up memorizing the entire Old Testament from Genesis to Malachi, it's an Italian prophet. Get it? Anyway, it's called the House of Learning. And this is, among other things, they learned this rabbinic method of answering a question, never answering it with an answer. I mean, our whole education is based on, I ask you a question, you spit out the answer, it's either right or wrong. Their educational system was trying to take them deeper than that because you would never answer a question with a question. For instance, if you were asked what's 2 plus 2, you wouldn't say 4. That's the answer, but that's not what you say. You would say, what is 16 divided by 4? 4, but you wouldn't say 4. You would say, I don't know. You keep answering a question with another question, and it would uncover layers. It would bring you down deeper, and it's just a fascinating thing to know. I don't want to get stuck on that, but when Jesus, as all of you know, had this habit of answering questions with another question, I used to think, man, he just is trying, like he just wants to irritate him because they can't pay him. Well, he might have been wanting to irritate him. I don't know. But he was doing this rabbinic thing. Everybody knew. That was how you thought. That was how you sparred even with each other. And that was just one of the things he did. Now, Bet Talmud, you go from 10 to about 15 with that kind of training. And at that point, a lot of people are done. There was one level, and this is the whole thing: how do you make a rabbi? How does a person become a rabbi? This was Bet Midrash, the house of study. Very few would get into this. It would be like applying to Harvard or Yale or Bethel or something, really prestigious place. It is a prestigious place. But here was the application, because in Bet Midrash, you would actually, if I was a young kid having gone through those I'm 15, 16 years old, what you want to do is find a rabbi and apply to them, to get them to somehow accept you as their talmidim, their student, their disciple, apprentice. And you would, the testing for that was really intense, and they would ask all these bizarre questions. I have some written down. There was a thing called the res. They would give some scripture, and the whole point of the scripture, they would leave something out. And it would be like, if you leave that thing out, nothing makes sense, or what they leave out is really the punchline, or that's really the confrontation. There are places, I wish I had written the text down, but places where Jesus says things and they look innocuous to us, and the Pharisees want to kill him, and you wonder why. Well, if you get into it, you realize that was a res. What he left out, they knew, and he insulted them. And he said, "You guys are a bunch of blah, 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 blah." Okay, like that.
Is
Okay,
that is that the Hebrew or the Greek?
Yeah. I'm fluent and I'm bilingual. And anyway, I didn't say the other things. So anyway, I want this rabbi to accept me as his student, and then you would have to go through this thing. And if I'm a rabbi looking at these students, I'm looking for more than smart, because here's what a rabbi is looking for. I want to find some kid who can perpetuate my legacy. I have an interpretation of the text. I have a way of looking at Torah and all of those. I have a way of interpreting that, and I also have a way of living that out. And I'm not just looking for smart, someone who can hold the information. I'm looking for someone who I think, and by the way, a rabbi's interpretation of the text, their way, which is what they taught, how to live. This is how we live. It was called their yoke. Remember Jesus said, "My yoke is easy. My way is easy." It's not, I've always heard that illustrated like, it's like you're an ox and Jesus is in it with you. And the yoke is the rabbi's way. It was his interpretation of the text, his way of living. And so the rabbi is looking for somebody who can be me. That kid can be like me. So when I'm dead, my interpretation of the text, my work, my legacy, the things I care about relative to the kingdom will continue, because they're going to live in him. This is getting good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, because Jesus, and if you made the cut, if the rabbi goes, "I think you have what it takes," he would say those magic words, "Lehacharai," come follow me, and his training would begin. It would just begin. Lehacharai, and he'd begin to follow, and he'd begin to listen. And there were jokes about students following, being so close to their rabbi, they'd be covered with his dust. I love that. They would go to the bathroom the same way. I know that's gross, but because they wanted to be like him. It wasn't just retaining the information. They wanted everything he did. They wanted to do every place he went. They wanted to go. And they wanted to be just like him. But they had to make the cut, and it wasn't easy to do. Now, spin this one. All of that understood in Matthew 4, back to where Jesus sees Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting their nets, for they were fishermen. Stop right there. Whatever else that means, it means, now maybe they didn't apply, but if they did, if they're fishermen, they didn't make the cut. They didn't make the cut. And the rabbi, which by the way, when you didn't make the cut, the rabbi would say, "Go, you're a good person. Go get a trade, have babies, and pray that God makes them rabbis because you didn't make it, but maybe your kid can." I mean, that was like a big deal to be a rabbi. But they didn't make the cut. And so when Jesus says to them, "Lechacharai," there's this person who they don't see yet as Lord, is a rabbi who's saying, "Come follow me." I always had this weird picture of, because immediately it says they left their nets and followed. And as a kid, I used to have this, there had to be like, woo, and they were like doing the nets and then follow me. Yes, I will follow you now, like that. And I think the reason immediately they followed was there's a rabbi who thinks we have what it takes to carry his yoke, to learn his way of living and loving your enemies, and they're going to do it wrong, and they began to follow and perpetuate his cause. There were only two rabbis in history that actually recruited other disciples, because everybody else had to apply, and so I would pursue a rabbi. One was, his name was Hillel, and he said that he would recruit anybody because God can make anybody, he said, a disciple of his. And Hillel was apparently not as into his own yoke being perpetuated, but God. So, and the other was Jesus, who said essentially, "Lachacharai," and he's still saying that, "Come follow me." And he had a particular enjoyment in saying that to the not good enoughs. To the people who really, or figuratively, didn't make the cut. There he is with fishermen who didn't make the cut. They just don't make the cut. And again, it's figurative language, because we don't know if they applied to be, that whole thing. But prostitutes don't make the cut. Tax gatherers didn't make the cut. And he says to them that amazing thing, "Come follow me." He didn't say, it's not that we shouldn't accept him, but he didn't say that. He didn't say, "I want you to accept me as your personal savior." They would. I want you to follow me and into a different way of thinking, a different way of living, a different understanding of the kingdom, and which kingdom matters, because it isn't Rome, and we're not here to kill all of them. This is a different kingdom. And I believe that you have what it takes to follow me, to carry my yoke. I believe, this is the best, that you have what it takes to become like me. And that's how it's guess what? If Christ in you, if it's worked, that yoke, and it gets distorted. I know, in me, but that's how it works. And my favorite part of that is, I just pictured Jesus saying that to somebody now. Who knows? Come follow me, because I think you have what it takes to follow me and carry my yoke and to become like me. And all it will cost you is everything. Everything. Yep. It's a lot different than sitting in church and admiring Jesus, or feeling good about Jesus, or believing the right thing about Jesus. All those are good. The people who follow him into his way, who are learning to love their enemy and aren't protecting all their stuff, change the world. At a time like this, be nice to see, kind of thing.
It makes all the feelings we have about our relationships and our belief of God, and those complicating things we feel about how we were raised, or our faith, or it just boils it all down. Right?
Yeah.
It boils it all down and makes it accessible. Are we willing to take our faith from believing to following.
Right.
And all that we have to worry about, I think, today is whether we're saying yes to that or not. We
Yeah.
don't have to worry about what we're going to do next. Right?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about what you said there, we decide, in the whole, we got to get people saved thing. I saw something, or somebody told me about something they saw online where somebody was getting someone to pray the prayer, and they prayed the prayer, and then he assured them, now you're going to heaven because you prayed that prayer. And okay. And I really am not blowing. I kind of am. It's important what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
But if we say we believe that he is, then follow him. Near the end of the series, it was in 2007. I just looked up.
Oh, you found it. Okay.
I know, so yeah. But near the end of it, and Steve had joined, Steve Weens, we were partnering in this thing. I think he came halfway through the series. And but near the end, the woman came up to me, and I'd never seen her before. She was Jewish. She identified herself as, I'm not a Christian. Mm-hmm. And my husband is nervous that I come here, but I heard these talks about Jesus as a rabbi, and I'm not going to become a Christian, but I want to follow him. And I said, and this is weird, I said, well, and I would actually, maybe it's safer to just lay it out as a question. Everybody, if that lady, whoever she was, gave her heart to follow him, where do you think her following him would bring her? I think it'd bring her right into the kingdom.
Yeah.
It's heaven when we die is important, but this says, the gospel of God was, the kingdom of heaven is within your reach, right here, right now. Not just heaven when you die, including heaven when you die.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger thing. It doesn't negate the other idea of believing the right thing. I think it's important. Believing the wrong thing will get you in trouble. I mean, anyway, so I'll shut up.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah.
Yeah, right.
Blah, blah, blah. It's just another one of these pieces of the puzzle that doesn't move, that we can say yes to following. We can say yes to believing, and we can say yes, more importantly, to following this rabbi whose yoke is easy. And
can I add one more thing?
Go.
Up with stuff. No, I think a lot of us, a lot of people in the church, we all get a little frustrated. Like, why is the church at times so impotent and incapable of engaging the culture in a way that is so transformative of the culture even? And I honestly think that some of this is why. I think it's just a really good thing to wonder about. Are we following his way?
Well, especially in this age where, I mean, even that word follow is used in a very different way, a similar way, but a very different way. Like, we follow people on Facebook. I mean, people are following you on your YouTube channel. My kids know what following something means.
Yeah, I follow the Chicago Cubs. Right. No, that's
so
good.
who are you following? Because I'm following a lot of things, but who am I following the most, and who am I dedicating my life to? And am I really? It's harsh. It's like, am I really allowing my life to become like his? Not just believing those things, but letting them act out in my life, letting them seep into my decisions, into my work. And that's a much harder question to answer.
Yep.
So it's a call to more, for sure.
Yeah, it is. That's a great distinction about what it means to follow too. Thanks for that. Yep.
Well, this is just a giant setup for what we're hoping to continue to unpack. As you know, Dave's series, when he talked about this series, and halfway through, your series went on for years.
Did it? Okay. Well, we're not going to do the whole thing. Don't worry.
No, this won't go on for years. I can't imagine that. But yeah, so tune in next time. We'll continue to unpack this Way of the Rabbi and really see where it takes us. Throw us some questions below if you'd like to. I'll pass them on to Dave, or we'll try to hop in the comments and answer them. So, all right. Have a great day, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.